How about you shuffle cards?
So Bigfoot, so it's 1, 2, 3. So he will go back there.
Okay. If you look at under what circumstances does poltergeist activity most commonly manifest? I'm thinking of 2 specific instances.
You got kids generally hitting puberty and haunted areas.
Okay, haunted, and then so how about a third? Seances, right?
Oh, sure. Okay.
And if you look at there's no shortage of hairy hominids appearing during seances.
Really?
Yeah.
That I did not know.
Yeah. I think it's. I'm sitting here playing a Bigfoot game and don't have my resources in front of me, but I want to say it was Franek Kluski, the great medium who actually manifested a subhuman creature that looked like a large hairy. He said it was either wearing an animal skin or it was actually a hairy animal itself. You find kids. There's another story, I believe, that of these kids who actually were playing with a Ouija board and ended up manifesting poltergeist activity in hairy hands. I mean, there's this entire phenomena of large disembodied hairy hands. Most famously, there's a set of hairy hands that appear in the interior of cars along a certain stretch of road in Dartmoor. Now, whether or not they're hairy hands, like a hairy dude's hands, or they're actually Bigfoot hands, it's sort of vague. But again, this idea of the disembodied hairy hand. Similarly in the ghost chapter, I talk about the idea of the hairy ghost, which is sort of a very common theme, and you can sort of see the vestiges of that in something like the Murders in the Rue Morgue, where it ended up being a trained orangutan that was killing people. But the idea of the hairy ghost is something that you find in a lot of literature and a lot lot of descriptions, both indigenous and elsewhere.
The only familiarity I have with Murder in the Rue Morgue is that it's an Iron Maiden song.
I think the story's the same though.
I don't really know the story. Like, I know the song, but I don't know the lyrics.
Oh, it's my turn.
Yeah. So what is the Murder in the Rue Morgue? Is it fiction?
Yeah, it's post-fiction, but it's an embodiment of. So if I recall correctly, it was not really that there was actually a ghost killing people. It was an orangutan.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Tim.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
But it speaks to that idea of the hairy ghost, which is something that you find. You will find people flat out say, and there's a fine line to walk with this book, because some people will jump to us saying. Some people, I think, will think that we are treating indigenous cultures as like a monolithic thing, and we both go out of our way to cite specific cultures that say these things. But people are going to be upset regardless. But there are some people who will say that in no Native American mythology is Bigfoot ever it might be considered a spirit being, but it's never a ghost. It's not entirely true. And even if it's not a ghost, sometimes it's associated with the dead. I mean, if you look at the Bookwus in Tlingit lore of Alaska, it's specifically it's a big hairy hominid that a lot of Bigfoot researchers have compared to Sasquatch, but it also is sort of it presides over the realm of the drowned dead. So while that doesn't necessarily make Bigfoot a ghost in that lore, there's an association there, and you will find that in a lot of indigenous American culture.
Do you find a lot of connection between the dead and Bigfoot?
Yes.
Okay.
Something that people don't talk about is we always associate graveyards and cemeteries with ghost phenomena, but they're also hotspots for UFO and Bigfoot encounters too.
A ton of Bigfoot sightings in graveyards, battlefields.
So I have made this comment about graveyards before, though, too.
Protection from Bigfoot. We got that Bigfoot spray.
I think when you deal with old graveyards, they didn't just pick random places.
Exactly.
They picked spots that were sacred, which means they could have been energetic spots, which is the type of area that this stuff would have been drawn to begin with.
One of my tokens to a safety station.
Nice. Station to station.
I will move it to the furthest from Bigfoot safety station.
That's a fictional podcast, Station to Station.
It's also Bowie's on.
Actually, it's a really good fictional podcast. They just started their second season.
No, to that point, Seriah, I think that there's a book somewhere in the idea that just looking at battlegrounds.
No, I just went.
Battlegrounds that have had anomalous activity associated with them before the battle took place.
Right.
I mean, pertaining to what we talk about, Chickamauga up in North Georgia is, that exact sort of thing where there's a Bigfoot. Oh, that's right. Are you orange?
No, I'm pink.
Oh, okay. The Chickamauga battlefield for years, in local indigenous lore, had this creature known as Old Green Eyes, which sort of sounds like a ghoul, sort of sounds like a hairy sort of creature. And then, of course, it was a site of a huge battle. And guess what else people see at the Chickamauga battlefield to this day? In addition, move any token to Bigfoot's cave. In addition to Old Green Eyes, people to this day at the Chickamauga battlefield also see
A woman in white.
So,
Really?
yeah. It's a gift that keeps on giving.
The legend with Old Green Eyes, there's a few of them, and of course we're talking about green glowing eyes.
Green glowing eyes.
1, 2, 3, 4. Who's green?
Me.
Tim's dead.
I still have 2 tokens on the board though, so I think you're immune until I get a token off.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's the way it goes.
Okay,
so everybody's got to come after me.
I keep playing.
Come at me, Bigfoot.
So I found that in a book about the Chickamauga battlefield, I'm pronouncing that right, Georgia boy?
Yeah.
That there's a supposed story of the battle, the day of the battle, that there was a hairy creature or creatures that during the breaks in the battle was carrying off the Confederate dead and possibly eating them. So, you have this Old Green Eyes thing where they talk about green shining eyes, and you also have this report of this other hairy creature. Whether they're connected or the same thing, I don't know. But
now that's been the hardest thing about this book is figuring out how to organize it. Because so do we put that with? Obviously there's that woman in white connection, but there's also a connection to the dead there, almost as like this Bigfoot acting as a psychopomp taking these bodies to the afterlife. But
yeah,
but if people will see the table of contents and they'll be like, well, where does it talk about cloaking Bigfoot? Where does it talk about bulletproof Bigfoot? Where does it talk about this or that? And part of the challenge was trying to stack these subjects into bigger, broader subjects. So cloaking Bigfoot / invisible Bigfoot / phasing Bigfoot appears in my ghost chapter because that's stuff that we associate with ghosts. Not saying that Bigfoot is a ghost, but it's just trying to find a way to stack these things because otherwise we'd have like 40 individual tiny chapters about things. So I think we might have some subheadings underneath those chapters talking about the topics covered. I think that might be a wise idea.
That's 1, 2, 3,
Sorry, I
4,
don't
5.
have
But I've got protection from Bigfoot. So
okay, so how many chapters do you have now? Do you know?
I have about 10. Because one of the things that I thought needed to happen is, if anybody has read George P. Hansen's Trickster and the Paranormal, he talks about UFO cases at length. He talks about psi cases at length. He talks about spirit cases, and etc., medium psychics, saints. But he mentions Bigfoot, but never actually looks into Bigfoot cases. Move Bigfoot to any unoccupied space. Where's my other purple man?
It's under me.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice. Charmer. Hansen mentions Bigfoot in passing as part of these sort of marginalized phenomena, but he never really, and I think it's just a function of him not really being into Bigfoot. He recognized that you would be able to apply this stuff. So, there's a whole chapter that I've got, and I actually have a friend of mine who's going to put me in contact with Hansen to get his opinion on some of these cases. But specifically looking at the 2 really big cases that really exemplify a lot of Hansen's ideas, beyond the trickster archetype and beyond, liminality, all these simpler concepts, even emphasize ideas like communitas, the social leveling, and these sort of ideas. Are the 2008 Bigfoot hoax from Georgia and the Minnesota Iceman.
2008 Bigfoot hoax? The one with the freezer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the guy who claimed it was...
Did you go?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
That's the guy who claimed he had Bigfoot in the freezer and then kept coming up with explanations on why he couldn't have it tested or something? Was that
it ended up being dead animal parts in a costume.
Right, but did he have an explanation for why?
For why what?
For
That's a banjo head.
For what was going on with it? What was his spiel basically?
Dude, it's such a convoluted story. Lauren Coleman did an excellent job of compiling a timeline of that entire event, which has been indispensable in structuring this particular chapter. Here I go. I get stomped. And it's blank. Dear podcast listeners, I'm trying to end this game quickly. So the original story was that he found a Bigfoot. Later, it sounded like it was shot by an ex-con friend of his. This was Rick Dyer. Rick Dyer partnered with another gentleman whose name escapes me, but he was, during this entire saga, he was an injured, he was a policeman injured in the line of duty.
Okay.
And if you're looking at con man Rick Dyer partnering with a policeman who was considered a hero after being shot in the line of duty, right there it's got the Hansinian fingerprints all over it, right? Mm-hmm. You've got liminality because he's off of his job, he's on medical leave. You've got communitas and social leveling. Finally, I'm out. There we go. You got communitas and social leveling of someone of, ill repute hanging out with an officer who at the time was considered a hero because he'd been wounded in the line of duty. So just sort of dissecting the case from that standpoint. Tom Biscardi got involved, which... Tom, right? Mm-hmm. I always want to say Scott. Tom Biscardi got involved, and for anybody who's into Bigfoot, that's a giant red flag. And so the chapter also looks at some of Biscardi's other endeavors and how they sort of fit that Hansinian model. So Biscardi sort of got his tracks. He got his start from a mentor who was very prominent in the Bossberg tracks from Oregon, which were sort of the Cripplefoot tracks. Have you ever heard of these?
No.
They're Bigfoot tracks that at one point someone said you had to be a podiatrist to come up with something so specific and convincing in terms of the way that the foot was misshapen. And so the Bossberg tracks have remained controversial. And again, that's sort of like the stink of, is it a hoax or is it not, marginalizing the phenomena further. Even in the case of, something like the Patterson-Gimlin footage, whether it's real or not, it has that stink on it.
Yeah.
And you can't wash that off. And that's the trickster archetype manifesting itself. Not the trickster is not an entity.
Yeah.
It's an archetype. It's a very important distinction. I feel like we're giving away so much right now.
I know, a lot. Did you go?
No.
No, I didn't. Sorry. So let's talk in generalities, because I feel like we're giving away the whole book.
I really doubt you're giving away the whole book. We're going to do a more detailed interview once the book comes out, obviously.
Yes. Which will be a while.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. What's your time frame?
This year. That was a double Bigfoot. That was a double Bigfoot.
Yeah. I'm hoping for fall.
Okay.
Hoping for fall.
Are you self-publishing it?
Yes.
Okay.
My first time.
Unless a really sweet offer comes in. Protection from Bigfoot.
And you lost it. It's on the floor.
No more. And you had a skip turn, so it goes to Seriah.
So, okay. So let's talk a little more. He has those tracks. What other types of things did he have on
Biscardi?
Yeah.
I mean, he's claimed to have had footage and hasn't ponied it up. And when he has released footage, it's been pretty obviously
fake. Token to the mining town.
There was some footage that Penn and Teller faked for their show BS that I believe he fully endorsed as being real. He said that I'll capture Bigfoot within a year, and it's never.
Well, obviously, yeah.
But this is if you're looking through that Hansinian lens, it all just makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is that any different than the Blink-182 guy? What's his name?
Tom
DeLonge.
Or if you
saying that everything on YouTube was real when he was on the Joe Rogan show,
or as John Tinney so wonderfully anagrammed his name, Dong Omelet. So here's the shocker for anybody listening. I'm more forgiving of To the Stars than I have been.
Really?
Because I've heard some things from some people whose opinion I value very much. Not Tom DeLonge. He's still a joker. He's still a complete...
Tom DeLonge was just a face they put out there that I think used.
But I've heard some interesting things that are...
You want to give us some info here?
Can't.
You can't tell us what you've heard?
Can't. Because I'm afraid it'll come back to this particular individual who...
Move any token to supply store.
Who shouldn't have said... Well, shouldn't have said, but was very cautious about saying some things.
No. Bigfoot would have to move one way and then move back to get him. So.
But there are some things that are said that encourages me that some of the people involved in the upper echelons get it. Now, whether or not it's still a disinfo front, I can't say. But double Bigfoot.
That's 12. Oof. You can go around and try to get people that way.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
That's
10,
you,
11,
right?
12. Yeah, I was thinking you could go and get me that way. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
I tried to set
12.
up. Yeah.
You're still safe, Tim.
I've heard some things that make me think that they're thinking in an oblique way that the public position of the organization does not quite convey. In other words, in short, the public image of the organization would have you believe. And Tim's out. Oh, he's got protection.
Protection for Bigfoot.
Oh, I thought it was
The public perception of TTSA, to the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, which I still maintain sounds like a Montessori school. The public face is that we're dealing with extraterrestrials and technology, and I think while certain people involved still think that there's technology, it's very apparent that they're embracing some other.
Oh, I think they are. I think that the deeper levels of government have a better concept than what they're showing at TTSA.
Right.
I think TTSA is just a front.
Yeah. The big news as of yesterday was that the Navy released new guidelines, which I misspoke on Twitter because I thought that it was involving civilians too, but part of me can't help but see this at least as a partial crowdsourcing of aerial surveillance. You know, if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
I think there's a legitimate interest in anomalies there, but I think it's also more about getting people to watch the skies more for something that might be an unorthodox enemy aircraft, terrestrial.
Right. That's also true. And there's always going to be that sort of double sort of thing with any of that.
No, Tim, you're Bigfoot bulletproof.
Not to be confused with a bulletproof Bigfoot.
Now, are there bulletproof Bigfoot?
Oh yes, there are.
I would say that's probably, in terms of anomalies that appear in otherwise flesh and blood encounters, it's probably the most common thing you hear about.
Okay.
And you'll hear lots of excuses for why Bigfoot is bulletproof. But, in terms of, yes, it's, if you shoot a bear with a handgun, you're not going to bring it down. No, you're not. Unless you're a really good shot and you know exactly where to put it and, Tim is bulletproof, man. But the bear will react.
Yeah.
And in a lot of these cases, people shoot at Bigfoot, a lot of times with high-powered rifles. In some cases, I've found automatic weapons. And Bigfoot just walks away, shrugs it off, etc.
Right. And this is... I lose my next turn.
Oh, sad day.
This is something you see with like the Hopkinsville goblins, where they would get shot, flip over, and then get back up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's not... do we have any credible accounts of Bigfoot being shot and being injured? Let's go that way.
I have, I've collected reports of... Well, I mean, there are people who have claimed to have shot Bigfoot. And I have reports of people shooting Bigfoot and tracking it by its blood.
Okay.
But never finding it,
right.
Of course. So, there seem to be some credible reports for people who shot it. There are also, equally credible reports of bullets that seem to bounce off the Bigfoot. And, which leads to this idea of a thick-skinned primate.
Some people will say that, and the funny thing is, I don't want to give up too much. There's evidence to suggest that if Bigfoot is a primate, its skin should not be that thick. Like scientific evidence.
I see. Okay.
Mapped against other primates that just...
Right.
And it really sounds a lot more like, the monsters of myth and legend that could only be pierced in a certain spot or something,
Right. Now, did you research any other cryptids in connection with Bigfoot?
I'd talk about bat squatch and, talk about, sheep squatch.
Wait, sheep squatch?
You've never heard of sheep squatch?
I've not heard of sheep squatch.
Bigfoot in any unoccupied space.
So basically, sheep squatch is like a Bigfoot with ram horns.
Huh.
The Lake Worth monster, which a lot of people will want to say is Bigfoot, was actually reported with having, big horns.
Well, wait a minute. You need to move your thing 5.
I thought we had
Seriah,
2.
come
You're
on.
right.
And people will still to this day say that
Now you roll for Bigfoot.
Sheep Squatch and Goat Man sort of overlap a lot. Well, we're out of. I gotta reload Bigfoot.
All right.
But you would have pushed the footprints.
I would have been out. Yeah.
Okay.
Getting down to the wire here, folks. Everybody's like, thank God. But if you're looking at it through that continuum, which again, there's folklorists and mythologists agree that there's a clear chain of custody in terms of depiction from fawns and satyrs to the wildman archetype.
Okay.
Very unambiguous, universally accepted chain of custody. That sort of reframes what sheep squatch is,
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
But then there's you've heard about bat squatch, which is like Bigfoot with bat wings.
So Mothman, in a sense.
Kind of, because oftentimes these bat squatch will have talons and glowing eyes.
Yeah.
Goth
Bigfoot, Gothfoot.
Well, I had 3. Bigfoot rolled 3,
so 2, 3. Okay. Any other cryptids, really? I mean, I touch on the lizard man of Bishopville, South Carolina, because you have to a little bit.
We touch on the Littlefoots a little bit. So
which is a term I hate, but for parsimonious purposes.
I mean, I would call them albatwitches because that's what we call them here, but
right.
It's just the idea of the little hairy creatures.
And how does that connect to the Fae? Strongly or not?
Absolutely.
I mean, if there's an entire class of brownies and related spirits that are almost always described as simian in appearance and short and hairy. And people see, albatwitch are generally considered a tiny subspecies of Bigfoot or juvenile Bigfoot or something along those lines.
Sometimes, yeah.
And people see large Bigfoot with smaller Bigfoot, and they automatically assume that they're juveniles. But and I would say to anybody listening, thinking about there not being a connection between Bigfoot and fairies, size is not as big of an issue to fairy lore as we have been led to think in pop culture.
Okay. Explain.
Oh, who's pink?
Me.
Oh, sad day. It's just Seriah and Josh on a mountain.
The Renners are out of the game.
It's like the end scene from The Thing, and I'm just staring at Seriah, waiting for Bigfoot to come up.
What they don't tell you is the name of this mountain is Brokeback.
Oh! What the heck was I talking about? No, it's just if you look at fairy lore, fairies come in all shapes and sizes. I mean, there's an easy argument to be made that giants and trolls especially are faithful. Trolls could be of all sorts of sizes, and oftentimes if you look at a lot of troll lore, it sounds just like Bigfoot stuff.
There's a lot, yeah. There's a lot.
To the point that some flesh and blood Bigfooters say that Scandinavian trolls are actually misrecognized Bigfoot.
Right. Well, not Hansen. No, not Hansen, not Talbot. Harper had said that he thinks that Bigfoot.
You can't go beyond Bigfoot. Bigfoot's a wall. You can't.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Where was I? Here, there.
Blue, I think.
Then did you stop it?
No, I was here.
You have to go the other way.
Okay. Okay, so
Harper has said that he just feels that Bigfoot is a very large daemon, just like any of this other stuff.
Quote from Patrick Harper: "You could call Bigfoot a big fairy." Yeah.
Big hairy daemon. I think he told me.
Northern Pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's.
That's right. It's just me and Seriah. I forgot.
Yeah.
Patrick Harper was a master of explaining that which I have trouble explaining, and that is the idea that these things can be archetypes and they can be imaginal, and yet when they're physical, they're very physical. They're as real as this game board when they're
The Bigfoot. But there's already a token next to Bigfoot. Okay. Yeah, and that's the problem. People, especially in Western culture, have a separation between material and non-material, and they don't accept a crossover, a
Token to the
liminality.
fishery.
Fisher.
And that liminality is exactly where all this stuff lies.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have any token to the gold mine? Where's the gold mine, guys?
Yeah, go ahead and put me up there. It's fine.
It's
Bigfoot
time.
gold mine.
So, I assume you cover UFOs in this and their connection to Bigfoot.
Yeah,
Yes.
we did something. We did something that is probably going to seem a little bit unorthodox. So, like, I am past the point of trying to divorce Bigfoot. I'm sorry, trying to divorce the alien contact experience and the fairy experience. I feel like it's. I can't
No,
do it anymore.
they're so clear cut connected.
So I have a chapter that's dedicated to basically phalians, which is the term that I prefer nowadays.
All right.
Phalians and Bigfoot and where those things correspond. You have
Okay.
missing time in some Bigfoot encounters.
Really?
You have this disinterest that people get after upon seeing something anomalous that happens in UFO encounters. Oh, I guess it's a UFO. Yeah, they keep on driving.
Oh, right.
That happens
okay.
in Bigfoot encounters. You have people who sleep through, they can't wake their spouse up during Bigfoot encounters, which is something that you hear all the time in abduction and in fairy lore. So I tackle like the idea of phalians and Bigfoot seen inside UFOs. And I've said to Tim, Tim, I love you. You don't have enough to write about. How about whenever people, not only are you writing about mysterious lights, but let's put Bigfoot seen outside of UFOs or in conjunction, in close proximity to UFOs. How about you tackle that too? So just to push that his way.
And there's a lot of that, isn't there?
Oh,
There's a lot
so
of
much
that. There's anomalous lights. There's a whole lot of. It's just. It's very. We can't be. How did you phrase it, Josh? We can't be comprehensive in this.
Right.
There's too much. There's too much. We can't name every case of weird lights with Bigfoot. We just can't do it.
Yeah.
But we can give a lot of enough examples, hopefully, to prove that it's a thing. And that we're not.
Maybe you can do a catalog like Valet would do.
Yes, Seriah, that's a great idea. How about you do that?
I am not the cataloging type. Are you trying to get stopped by Bigfoot?
Yeah, I'm over this game.
So, anomalous lights, we're talking move any token to Bigfoot's cave. Now I'm going to try and protect Josh. With anomalous lights, we're not just talking UFOs, though. We're talking will-o'-the-wisps and things like that, which then bring us back into fairy lore.
Yeah. And I think we've talked about this a lot. Like, I think that if there's any one thing that's going to crack open the paranormal chestnut, I think the lights are where it's at.
Yeah.
Because
Lights are definitely a big
it's
thing.
the most pan-paranormal thing that you can find.
Lights, poltergeist activity, and electricity, I think, are the three things that are going to be the key to figuring any of this out, even a little bit. Especially electricity. And I take that into the electric universe model as well.
Oh, Seriah, is it? Oh, and Seriah is king of
That's weird. Should have been one of you guys.
Bigfoot Mountain. No, it's because you've seen this stuff all the time. You're not scared by it, right? You're frightening. Bigfoot's frightening the miners off the mountain. Yeah. So now I got to empty Bigfoot here. Sounds like I'm a notary or something.
So electricity, more and more, I'm leaning toward the part electricity plays in this stuff, because and when you look at the electric universe model on top of that, that also suggests that everything is electrical. And if we're dealing with something electrical and we don't totally understand what that electrical stuff is, that could be part of the answer, is better understanding this type of stuff.
Right.
Like we never on this show, we've never discussed the first picture of the black hole. And of course, everyone's seen that. I'm assuming. I can't imagine. Did you lose one?
I'm missing a purple miner. Oh, here he is.
I'm assuming everyone saw the picture of the black hole, and it's been touted as, oh look, it's exactly what we expected. If you look on the Electric Universe page, Walt Thornhill, prior to the picture being shown, was asked what he expected the picture to be. And he said, well, at the center of every galaxy is a plasmoid. And these plasmoids will give off a horseshoe-like shape with a bright rim around them and a dark center. And of course, that's exactly what the picture of the black hole is. It's not a hole with a dark center or a dark spot. It's a very bright area, horseshoe-shaped with a dark center. Mm-hmm. So did they photograph a black hole or did they photograph a plasmoid?
I wish that could be a conversation we could have without people saying that you're some sort of science denier or something.
Right. See, the other thing about black holes is they give off X-rays and gamma rays in streams, which is something else the electric universe predicted before they started tagging that onto black holes. Mm-hmm. So this is something worth looking at, and it's not getting looked at because we're so stuck in the model that says this is, how these things work. It's all, we already figured it out. We're just proving all the points. Mm-hmm. And maybe they are. Maybe that is a black hole. Maybe it's not a plasmoid. But it's an open question, being that it doesn't falsify the predictions made by the electric universe.
Right.
So,
I mean, I think the biggest problem that we're having is that so much of science is working backwards from an assumption.
Yes.
And they're just not looking at it completely impartially.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I will maintain that this is something that's getting better, but it's
in some respects. Yeah, but it's also about funding and things like that. It's the way the stuff works doesn't promote new ideas, because if you throw a new idea out there and it fails, you lose your funding.
Right. And the thing that kills me is that people, I feel like a lot of the establishment and a lot of people who just are I effing love science on Facebook, that mm-hmm. that sort of crowd, think that any sort of alternative interpretation of something like the black hole photo means that we have to throw out everything. No, you don't.
No, it's just a possibility.
I get into this argument on Twitter all the time that people say, materialism isn't dead. Well, to be fair, if I have a black and white film and I add green, it's no longer a black and white film. Are black and white still in the picture?
Yeah.
Yes. But there's green in there too, which by definition it's no longer a black and white film.
Yeah. Well, there is some level of materialism to our reality.
Exactly. But if there's anything that defies the materialist paradigm, materialism is done. It doesn't mean that we have to throw away the body of research that we have about basic physics and stuff. It doesn't mean that there is not a material reality, but it means that materialism as a paradigm that says at its base level there is nothing but matter, it's done.
Right. That's a good way of putting it.
And I don't know why people can't get that through their head. And that applies to everything.
It's the either or argument. Everyone has to divide rather than look at all sides of something.
Yeah, I mean, people want to talk about all the things that we've lost at this point in the 21st century, but nuance is at the top of that list. The idea that has been a theme that Tim and I have talked about over the past 24 hours. The idea that you can simultaneously hold two ideas in your head.
Yes. Without devoting yourself to only one of them and making the other the enemy.
Right.
Yeah, two things can be true.
Yeah. Well, that's true too.
Yeah.
And I think politics has had a lot to do with that. Mm-hmm. Because it's the people who are running things want that divide and conquer strategy.
Yeah. And I do think that's deliberate.
It's
putting people
totally
at loggerheads.
You can go.
Oh, I can.
Yeah, you're welcome to hang if you want, but you can.
Peace.
Thanks for playing, Ursula.
So what does that say we've recorded?
An hour and 6 minutes, something like that.
That's what I got. So should we stop here and put this up for patrons, maybe?
Yeah, let's do it for patrons.
Yeah, I feel like that too.
Patrons would appreciate it more.
Yeah.
All right.
For multiple reasons.
Yeah, and that way we're only giving it away to hundreds, not
right.
Yeah,
thousands and thousands of people.
All right, so that concludes this now patron-only episode.
Also, patrons are probably more forgiving of us playing
Bigfoot Game. Yeah.
We appreciate all
Plus, I like
this is the second time today Josh and I have played the Bigfoot Game, if we have to be truthful.
Had you ever played the Bigfoot Game prior to today?
No, Josh sat down and figured out the rules.
Can we show they haven't seen the map. They've been looking at it.
They can see the map.
Okay, here's the...
But there's the better look at it.
Brokefoot Mountain. Not Bigfoot. Bigfoot.
Two words. Yeah.
It's
and there's only one Bigfoot.
Yeah, right. Just the Bigfoot.
It's harder to play when you're discussing things.
And knocking.
And we were just kidding, like just having fun playing earlier today. And it's actually it'd be a great game for kids.
Yeah,
Like,
it really is.
It's
It
like
really
a
is.
fun little game to play.
And there's some strategy to it. It's
You
well
could
done.
you could get very strategic with it if you like. You could get evil with it.
I
if
thought you were
wanted
gonna hate it.
What?
I don't know. I just thought you were gonna think it was stupid.
You know the type of stuff I do on my metal show. Right?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I mean, granted, usually it ends with someone getting something broken on them, but still,
Yeah.
I like fun gimmick concepts once in a while. I'm a wrestling fan, after all.
Well, I feel like we showed the Bigfoot game on your video,
Yeah,
and we had to pay it off.
Yeah.
We had to pay it off.
Well, had it ever been opened? Had you opened it at least, Tim?
I had opened it to make sure, for sure. I had to make sure that big foot was in the game.
But it had never been played. Like, we punched these out today.
You punched
yeah.
those out. Nice.
Yeah. So
it was in mint condition.
I mean, other than the box is a little, it's old.
Wait, if this is for Patreons, are you telling me that I could have been cursing this entire time?
You could have.
Ah, son of a bitch.
You can say that anyway.
Ursula would have
That's radio friendly.
appreciated that.
All right. Well, I guess we should stop there. Thank everyone for putting up with this.
Yes, thank you.
And see, you didn't give it all away. You didn't give your whole book away. So we go into the
Well, and
special
to be
people.
fair, there's still a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
we could have talked honestly for the whole show on any one of the. I could have done the whole show on Women in White.
Yeah.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Like, there's that much there. So, and and each chapter's the same. We could do a whole show easily on each chapter.
Yeah.
All right. So let's conclude there. And thank you for putting up with this.
Sure thing.
And thank you guys.
Thanks.